So the first thing I want to ask you, Leo, is talk to me about the Olympics. You've just got back from Paris. You've been
Yes.
working with the Chinese national team. What were you doing? Give us a flavour of what's been going on.
Yeah, it was a great experience, Mike. So we were in Concorde in the center of Paris, and it was the new sports that are in the Olympics. So it was breakdance, BMX, climbing, and I was with the breakdance China team. And the breakdance China team decided to use the breathing as a tool for the athlete. So I've been following them as the breath coach for more or less 1 year. We did before some training camps last year. Then we did some Zoom, and then I went with them to the competitions. I was into the pre-qualifier sessions that they had before. They were in Budapest, and I helped them during the competition to qualify for the Olympics. And then they qualified some athletes, of course, for the Olympics, and I was with them in Paris, and I helped them while in Paris to prepare in the morning with breathing exercises, to have breathing during the long day competitions, because they have like a long day of competition battle, we say, in breakdance, and then also after to recover and sleep better. So I was with the team and the athletes as the guy that was helping the athletes with breathing, and I thought it was really cool because today in sports, some of the athletes do a little bit of breathing on themselves, but don't have like a very systematic approach. And the fact that I could do that with them multiple times a day, it was really, for me, it was great. For the athletes, I had very good response. They were happy to be able to do that. And they took the bronze medal, one of the athletes, so it was a very good result. So I'm very happy that I was at the Olympic and also that managed to win a medal.
Congratulations. That's amazing. This is very cool, by the way. So I'd love to dig into this a little bit with you. So what exercises would you be doing with them, first of all, to get them to sleep? What breathing exercises? What could we learn as the audience here? What would you be doing with those athletes?
I'll mention maybe some names of technique. I don't know if all the names will talk to you, but I use some 4-7-8 breathing. That is very simple thing that they could do while laying in the bed on themselves. So I taught them how to do it. But when we were together, I was more engaging in a synergetic approach of multiple techniques, using diaphragmatic breathing and yogic breathing in different moments, and connected generally, nose breathing, with a slow pattern, slow rhythm, usually 5, 6, or 7 breaths per minute. So something that is quite slow, but is connected, is fluid, it is as a wave. And I associate visualization and intention to the exercise, and also associate generally some breath holds, empty breath holds, but not too long, not stressful, really just as a pause. So something that can be similar to the Wim Hof breathing, but it's not the Wim Hof, so we do it in a different way, but can remind some of those techniques where you breathe in a way that is connected and conscious, and where you do also pauses. And then, of course, we worked also a little bit on the breath consciousness.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what would you recommend somebody who gets to sleep, but then they wake up at like 3 a.m.? Would it still be 4-7-8, or would you suggest some other type of breathing modality for somebody an athlete or anybody that wakes up halfway through the night?
I would suggest, first of all, to open the window, stand up, open the window, and breathe some fresh air, because sometimes it's also related to an activation of the nervous system that is not just only our mind or our stress, but it's also the environment that sometimes makes us in temperature, or carbon dioxide in the room, or pollution maybe that is inside the room, and things that activate the body to say is not right to sleep in this condition. So what I do is that I woke up, I don't switch on the light, and I open the window, I get some fresh air, and maybe I look at the sky, or if I can watch outside, and then I just breathe first consciously, deeply, and sometimes I really like to do some mouth exhale, like a sigh. This is really like something to let go of something that can be chemical, can be mechanical, can be psychological. And then once you feel a little bit more like settled down, usually it's just a couple of minutes, then laying down. Why not 4-7-8? Another thing that I use actually I forgot to mention before with the athletes is what I call the power nap. Is a combination of inhale, squeezing the muscles, exhale with a sigh, and releasing all the tension in the muscles. And you can repeat that 3 to 5 times. And when you do it, in the moment that you do it, you say, no way this is going to relax me, because it's really intense. But then it's just so much powerful that you don't realize you fall asleep, or you just really go into deep relaxation. There is a contrast principle. Is one of the principles that I use in the Spire Academy. We can talk about later. So that's something also can be used if you feel that you are too much aroused in an internal state. You can do this: inhale, hold, contract, exhale, release, and repeat.
And do you contract all the muscles, so face, arms, fingers, toes, or just the belly?
No, everything.
Everything.
And of course, it's not like brutal, because sometimes when you think I need to contract, then I do it as much as I can. No, it should be intense, but not brutal. It shouldn't be like too much. And I do it personally, something I prefer, toes to the head. So I start with the feet, then the calves, then the legs, then the belly, then the chest, then the neck, then the face. At one moment, everything is together, and then I exhale. And I hold just a few seconds. It's not long hold, it's 3 to 5 seconds.
That's interesting. So you inhale, contract from the toes up, hold,
yes.
And then let go of everything.
Let go of everything with mouth and all the tension at the same time.
That's beautiful. I like that. I'm going to use that later. So was there loads of other breath coaches there? Did you meet other breath coaches in the Olympics, or were you the only one as far as you could tell?
As far as I know, there was one from the Italian team that I helped training into breathing. She's a coach that is specialized in mental preparation and psychology of athletes, and I helped them with my books and with some coaching a few times. And she brought the breathing techniques to the athletes in the rhythmic gymnastic. I don't know if the terms is for the Italian team, and they did a very good job. So she was there. I know about that. She's not a breath coach. So it was more me helping her, saying you should do this and that, but she brought that, and in a more depth way than just diaphragmatic breathing. It was more like something more strategic and more precise than just say conscious breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, or cardiac coherence, that are great tools. But she was trying to tune it a little bit more into the phases of the day. What do you do in the morning, what you do before the competition, what you do after, what you do during, what you do in the training the 2 weeks before, what you do in the training the month before, what do you do in the training the year before. So she was a little bit more into asking me all of those questions, and I was helping her. And I think that's the good approach to go. But of course, that some of the athletes that were there, they were coached on breathing from some breath coaches. And I know that because some of our colleagues, Mike, we chatted to say, oh yeah, I have some athletes there. They did medals. I helped them with breathing, but they didn't talk maybe too much about it, because, it's also a tool that you don't want to say maybe too much about it. And I know that some other coaches that were there are sensible about the breathing approach, and they maybe have advised, this diaphragmatic breathing, or this conscious breathing, or this cardiac coherence breathing to some of the athletes. And I heard some testimonials of Novak Djokovic or Léon Marchand, so gold medals, saying, yeah, I use breathing. Yeah, they say it. I used breathing, and it was helpful, But, what is the extent that they use breathing? I don't know. It was just a small tool that gave something, or they really went deep to optimize that as well. I don't know. But of course that now in the elite world sport, the one that are at the top, they are at least a little bit involved into the conscious breathing and breathing techniques world.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. It's becoming obviously so much more popular than it was 4 years ago. What technique would you use with an athlete? I'm just curious. Before they go out to the event, if they're feeling quite nervous and they're going to go out and perform in, I don't know, a few minutes time or an hour's time, what are you doing? Are you doing something fast or something slow? Give us a flavor of what you would do for pre-performance anxiety.
Yeah, if they are stressed, I make them work on very simple techniques, because when you are stressed and you have no time, there's no way they're gonna sit and do like 15 minutes exercise. They maybe have 30 seconds. So I use a variation of the exercise I told you before, standing or walking. I use a double exhale time on the inhale that you can do walking, talking, sitting, whatever you want, with some variations on the nose, the mouth, the sounds, the place you breathe in. So that's the two things I do the most. And sometimes I do them, make some specific movement to release some tension in the body that are related to the breath, but not just breathing techniques. And then of course we work on the breathing before, because if you want to deal with stress and anxiety for a competition, it will be silly to think that you can just do it 5 minutes before you have it without having worked with it before. So they have a work that is comprehensive. They have mental coaches, training, but also the breathing, you learn how to use it so way before, so the stress is ramping up less, or if it's ramping up the same, you can deal with it in a better way because the system is more aligned. And then the tool that you use it as a technique is just, the cherry on the cake that is going to help you at the end to deal with it. But it would be a little bit too much to say that you just use a technique and you deal with your stress in such an event, because we are talking about the Olympics, for example. If it's something lighter, maybe, a small stress, maybe traffic jam, or a Zoom connection problem when you do a podcast, yeah, maybe you can just. But at that level, it was so intense that the preparation that we did before really helped. And Mike, also the CO2 tolerance that you have is really something that makes a huge difference on how you deal with stress. So if you work on that, then the moment you're going to feel that huge stress, you will deal with it in a different way. So it's a matter of preparing not only the psychophysiological aspect of it, working on the nervous system, of course, but also the biochemical and the biomechanical aspects of it. And then there are other two dimensions that you can work on, and the other two make the full approach, in my opinion, in my way, and is the energetic and the spiritual way of using the breath that compose the 5-dimensional approach of the Inspire Academy.
I love that. But let's dig into that in a second. So let's just say I'm an athlete and I'm coming to you for support for the Olympics. What would you say is the minimum effective dose of time that you could actually work with something? Because if I said to you, look, I want to work with you, but I've only got 20 minutes a day, I'm assuming that's probably not going to be enough time. So do you have quite strict protocols around how much time, or does it vary person to person? Just going to pause the podcast for a second. I'm super excited to share that our 7-day breathwork reset program, or burnout reset program, is for a limited time completely free. I've been running this course for about a year. We've had amazing results, and it's designed for you if you are tired and exhausted and you've got no time. So the less time, the better. It's only 7 minutes a day, this course, and it's a 7-day program, and it's designed to build habits, healthy, sustainable habits using the breath. And so I wanted to make it accessible to you for a period of time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this podcast. So the link's down below. It's a professionally edited and put together course. It's all held in a lovely place, and you get to keep it for life as well. So grab the link below, and my suggestion is this: if you're going to do it, then do it. Don't put it off. Don't grab the link and think I'll do that next week. It's only 7 minutes, so I would get the link, and then after this podcast, after you finish watching it, get signed up, get enrolled, and just do the exercises that I send you each and every day and have fun with it. And I promise you, at the end of the 7 days, you'll be a different person to who you are watching this video right now. So the link's down below. It's only free for a limited time. It's usually about $77 to $97. We play with the price a little bit, but I wanted to give you a little gift. So link's down there, grab it, and let's get back on with the show. Cheers.
This is a great question, because it is always a question of how much time, how much effort do I need to put into it to have results. So what I think is that is great, because breath work requires some amount of effort and time, but it's not huge compared to other things, in my opinion. And 20 minutes can be enough, but could also not be. And it really depends on where you start from, where do you want to go, what's the objective, and how you use it, you know, because 20 minutes using the wrong techniques can be useless. So you have 20 minutes and then you just do a technique, a breathing technique that is not the right one, so it can be useless. But 20 minutes specifically tailored for you, it can be good. So it's also a matter of choosing what works, and that's why usually with an athlete you need to assess where you are, you need to see where you want to go, and you need to tailor the exercise. So you need to test a few things before you know what works. And 20 minutes, you know, for example, is not too bad if the level you start from is okay, and you do specific things for a specific objective. 20 minutes can be okay already. It's not a lot, I agree, but it can be enough depending on, you know, your world. And for other people, 20 minutes is not just enough, because they start from very far, they do nothing else on the side, and they have a huge things to do. And it's not just, I'm not just talking about physical performance or mental performance, I'm also talking about health, I'm talking about stress, I'm talking about sleep. You know, if you start from very far, from panic attacks, insomnia, and problems like that, and you just want to resolve it in 20 minutes of breathing, maybe it's not going to be enough. Maybe you will need more like 45 minutes for a few weeks. But then maybe that 45 minutes for a few weeks become 30, and then they become 20. So it's also a matter of, it is a journey, really. You need to see that at one point you may need more or less and different things. And that's why, you know, I always say, and I'm sure you agree, breathing is simple, but it's not like something that is just obvious and I don't know how to say it in English, banal. I don't know how to say that in English, but it's something that you need to understand to use it, even if it's simple in a sense. It's not complex, it's simple, but at the same time you need to understand it. So it is a journey. Sometimes you will need to do something, a technique, then lose that technique, do something else, and then maybe someday you need to use that in combination to other things you already do to save time and have a joint effort. And on other days, you just do it on your own, sitting, doing nothing else. And then someday you do that for 15 minutes and someday you do that for 1 hour. So, you know, that's why when you see an athlete and then you try to make, a work program for them, and you say, okay, we're starting with that, we see in a week, and then we change. It's not just a matter of giving you a program and you follow it. It's not, I would like that to be so easy, but it is not. And that's how I do it on myself as well, because I'm still an athlete. I still do a lot of sport. I still like to do competition challenges. The next one to come in a few weeks is running a marathon, again with just nose breathing, mouth tape in 3 hours. So it's something that is demanding and it's not easy for me because I'm not a runner. I've never done marathons before. I just did one last year for fun with no training. So I'm starting from scratch, and I see that some days, I need to work with my breath maybe 2 hours. Some other days is 15, 20 minutes because I'm doing other stuff. And one day is to train my breath, or something that is quite challenging. And other days is to recover for my run. So I'm doing something completely different. It is so vast and so different, the world of breathing, that really is a matter of using the right thing at the right time. And this is really the science for me, and what makes the difference between just knowing techniques and being guided and knowing what to do at the right time. And that makes a huge difference for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And one of the reasons I love listening to you, and when we connected a couple of years ago, was you're very open to the full spectrum of what breathing has to offer. And it's not just this is the only way. You mentioned something a few minutes ago around assessments, and I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit more. So, for example, the main ones that I use are control pause or bolt score. People can look these up online. Maximum breathlessness test, how many steps from the oxygen advantage, and Belissa Voranic's breathing IQ with the measuring tape and the high-low breathing. Can you give us a flavor? What other ones are you looking at? How else would you measure someone's breathing? Give us the kind of examples of what else we could look at.
Yeah, I start first always with a quality check. So I let them observe how they breathe without changing the way they breathe, and I follow them on a few elements they need to observe, and those elements are the variables of breathing. My approach is understanding what are the variables in breathing, and I make them observe how do you use that variable in this moment, you know. And so first they start to observe and understand, and they tell me. So I have a few things they tell me, and then I do a second one is always the breathing frequency check. So now, you know, sitting or laying down, eyes closed, no change in your breath, how many breaths per minute you do, because that is a huge indicator of the internal state, what's running behind the scene. Are you stopped with the car on a traffic light is red and you are fully on the accelerator, or you're not accelerating? You know, what's happening behind? That for me is a really good one. Then I always do bolt, control pose, and maximum breathfulness test, because they're very two good tools from the Oxygen Advantage. And then actually in the Inspire Academy, I use 12 or 13 efficiency breathing test, and I use maximum time of exhale after full inhale also as a very good tool, and then I use some habits. How do you observe your breathing in your day? And they answer questions: nose, mouth, the night, consciousness about it, you know. And using all of those, then you really have a full spectrum. I think we need to imagine of those charts where you have, you know, different way, and you can score from 0 to 100 in all those different way. And you see maybe one can be very good and one can be very bad. And so it can tell you on those 5 dimensions of breath, which one are quite good and which one are quite bad, or maybe all good or maybe all bad. And of course, there are interactions between those tests and those dimensions, but it's not obvious. It's not just because there is an interaction that if one is bad, the other one is also bad, or vice versa, good and good. So it would be good to have a full spectrum. So when someone enters the Inspire Academy, that is the full you know, path with the breath that I propose, that is quite long, because it can take from 6 months to 1 year or more. Then they do all of those and they repeat all of those and they see how it evolves. And I give a score from 0 to 100%. And they see, okay, I go in with maybe 30% and I go out maybe with 80%. And, you know, and this 100%, of course, you can go, it's just an idea of something very good, but you can also be more than 100% if in one moment you really excel in that skill.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. What, Leo, what, if any, breath gadgets do you use? You know, we've got Aerofits and we've got relaxators and we've got pulse oximeters and nose strips and all this sort of stuff. So for a lot of people, they can benefit just from learning how to breathe properly. But then there's all these little extra gadgets and gizmos on the internet. Which ones do you use or don't use?
I tried, I think, most of them, not all of them, because sometimes I didn't find justified the benefit and the cost. So I didn't try all of them, but I tried quite a few of them. And I would say that I don't use many too. I used specifically at one point the Aerofit, but really for quite a small time, and I didn't really love it so much, because what I could do about the muscle strength training, I found that I could do it in other ways that I preferred at the end using the techniques. But at the beginning, I used for that, for the muscle strength, and also to have some measures. I found that cool to have some measures with the app, but I don't use it so much right now. I use the Oxygen Advantage mask quite a lot. And that's something that I still use a lot before, when I had to recover my breath from something that was not very good, and a little bit less now, because I sort of do it with the techniques, but I use it sometimes. I like to measure my breathing rhythm at night with the Aura. I have the Aura, so I like to check that to see how is it going, is accelerating, is decelerating. Pulse oximeter, of course. I just climbed the Monte Rosa in Italy. Is the highest alpine shelter in Europe, 4,600 meters. And we went up with a group. I brought people up. I was the group leader. And there were no people that didn't do mountain before. Some of them were Brits, and the highest peak was Snowdon for them. So we're talking about 3 times higher than Monte Rosa. And at 4,600, you really have you need to be careful about mountain sickness. And so with them, I did all a preparation to prepare for altitude for a month. They all succeeded to go up. They all succeeded to go down. They all succeeded not to be mountain sick. But with them, of course, I used the pulse oximeter. We had them every day going up. We took 2.5 days and going down, and we saw how it was in the top. And that was very useful because when we were at the top, some of them, they had maybe 60 on oxygen saturation. That is really low. If you stay at 60 for an hour or two, then you're mountain sickness. You start to be mountain sick and you cannot go down on your own. And we started doing breathing exercises, specific breathing exercises that I thought in that moment to be useful. And in 5 minutes, they were at 95. So that is the thing you have normally at the sea level. So that was really useful in that moment, but in daily life, not using it very much. I used it maybe at the beginning to understand how far could I go when I was doing breath holds. Was it safe? Was it not safe? Just to understand that. And then I used a few other things in the past that I'm not using anymore. So I think it's worth to mention. I'm intrigued by the Oxa Life. I don't know if you know it, that it was some sensors about the biomechanics, but at the end I didn't do it yet. I think I quite often understand my biomechanics without having the t-shirt, but I thought it was cool maybe to see what the t-shirt was saying. But one thing I would be interested would be to breathe a mixed of enhanced carbon dioxide to see how it is compared to the breathing techniques I do. But I haven't done it yet because the technology you talked about it, the technology was proposed, it was not yet tip top because you had to buy on the side the CO2, and I find it a little bit complicated. So one day when it will be more, simple, I'll check it.
Yeah, I funnily enough, I was dealing with this today. I have mine arriving soon, and I'm going to make a video about a mini documentary.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So yeah, you have to buy the soda stream and the device, and you can. So I will let you know how it is. I'm very excited as well to test this. So you've just touched on altitude sickness, and I would love to get your thoughts on a little bit more on this. So I don't know where you started, but I started with Wim back in 2016. So I went to Śnieżka in Poland with Wim, and we spent a week, and very, very cool. And he was telling us the story of when they climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and him and all the instructors, they've got people on the mountain, and they're doing the Wim Hof up on the mountain. They've got people up and down and no problem. Patrick and the oxygen advantage they talk about. Altitude preparation training is probably the way I would say it. So they're doing like a low and slow and light, gentle breathing to prepare. What are you doing in preparation, and what did you do when they were on top of the mountain? Because I'm curious on those two differences. Yeah,
very different things. So first of all, the requirement for me was that they would take at least a month to really train their breath before coming with me. Some of them were my students already, so they already worked on the breath. But some of them, I told you, they were Brits. I haven't seen them in years. I didn't know if they were working their breath. So I had a call with them and say, look, in 6 weeks, we're going up. Now I give you some exercise. You need to do it. So first is a requirement of commitment into getting the breath, done every day. And I think it's important because sometimes you think about climbing Mont Blanc or Monte Rosa or Kilimanjaro, and you think about training your legs and training your walk, of course. But you need to think about training your breath as well. So that was the first. And then I asked them to breathe with the nose every time, during the day, during the night, during sport. That was the second requirement. I didn't want people not being able to use their nose in a moment where it was required, because we are 4,600 meters and up there is cold. And if you start breathing with your mouth in dry and cold air, you're going to get bronchoconstriction on the top of altitude sickness. That would be not ideal. So you need to be able to breathe with your nose. Going up, walking up a mountain. So I gave them some exercises to train the simulation of high altitude training from the oxygen advantage. So getting their body and minds used to hypoxia, intermittent hypoxia. I get them to work on their lung capacity with full yogic breath. I get them to work with the Wim Hof method breathing techniques to get into long exhale breath hold to get to, again, far intermittent hypoxia. Because what I learned in those recent years is that if you want to go into far intermittent hypoxia, when you do correctly the Wim Hof method breathing techniques, you can go very far, farther than using the oxygen advantage protocols, but in a different way, because the oxygen advantage protocols are moving a specific muscle, so training a specific area of your body. And when you do Wim Hof, you're laying down, so it's more like a systematic organic body happening. Okay, so it's not the same. We need to understand that the hypoxia condition generalized to the body is not the same of the hypoxia condition generalized to the muscle, and is the same of the hypercapnic, more CO2, not just less oxygen, but also more CO2. So we work with those oxygen, worked with Wim Hof, we work with nose breathing, and that was the preparation before. And I gave them the katana breathing exercise that I created to get their breathing efficiency going up. And then during the going up, we worked in a different way. We did many exercises. Now I'm not gonna specify all of them, would be long, but we did many stops, many breaks during the day, in the night, because just sleeping, for example, at 3,900 meters, that was the day before going 4,600, is not easy at all for a body that is not acclimatized. And none of us was acclimatized. Because when you go from 0 to 3,900 with just one night in between, you're not acclimatized. You can't do anything. So it's really important that you prepare that as much as you can. We did breathing exercises, and then the day we went up, in the morning, I make them breathe for 1 hour before, doing a combination of biomechanical, biochemical, psychophysiological exercise, energetic exercise, really, to charge up the battery. And we did that at 4 a.m. because, we had to start at 5 a.m. to go on the top in time and come back. So it was really, the mountain guides told me, if you want to do your breathing, you need to do before 5 a.m. And I say, yes, that's a non-negotiable things to succeed. Because if none of us is expert in mountaineering, none of us is acclimatized, and none of us does those breathing exercises, we'll not go on the top. So we did it at 4 a.m. So we wake up in the night and those exercises. And when we went up, all of them were in nose breathing only. And that was really important and really good also to see that they could do it. And so deep, slow, nose, but if needed, big, if needed, of course you're walking. And when we arrive at the top, I was doing some connected yogic breath with full inhale, hold, hyperpressive. So putting pressure into the lungs to get more oxygen going to the bloodstream. And then, a combination for other simple exercises, not too much because over there, it's very little space, very little time, so couldn't do very complicated things. We should do them sitting, couldn't even do laying down. And in 5 minutes, you could see the oxygen saturation going from 60% to 95%. But then, of course, not staying there for more than 5 to 10 minutes, so needing to do that again because the body was not acclimatized. But not an issue if you know how to breathe, at least at that altitude. I don't know how much you can go. I think it really depends on your lung capacity and your breathing capacity, but I think you can go very far, even not being acclimatized if you know how to use your breath.
Yeah. Oh, that's very exciting. Thank you for sharing that. One question that I would love to get your thoughts on is about CO2. And James Nestor spoke about this a lot. He was carrying a CO2 monitor around with him, airports and train stations and hotel rooms. And he mentioned a study called the Framingham study. And in there, they looked at CO2 levels inside rooms. And I think they said something like when it gets to 1,500 parts per million, the test scores of children halved, which is shocking. So I bought one of these CO2 monitors and I've been checking everywhere. We've got a little baby that sleeps in our bedroom. So we all sleep, all three of us. Sometimes the level's like 2,000, 2,500. And in the winter, we had all the windows closed because it was cold. So I've been quite interested in this. There's lots of people that talk about this. Anders Olsen talks about this. We just spoke a few minutes ago, you and I, about the device where you can breathe in CO2. And so I guess my question is, maybe if you could talk a little bit about the differences between slow breathing exercises like Oxygen Advantage and how these increase CO2, and that's a good thing. But then why is the CO2 in the room possibly toxic, if it's toxic? So what are your thoughts on some of this? Because the last bit I would say is like, the way I was trying to figure out in my head is maybe there's a difference between the CO2 your body produces that gets out versus the CO2 that's in the room that you're breathing back in, and there's a different response. But I would love to get your thoughts on this.
I think is a matter of the time frame, about intermittent and prolonged exposure. And if you do prolonged hypercapnic training, you're gonna have a headache. We know that that's happened. The body's not happy. He's just not in a condition that is optimal for him. But it is somehow training to withstand that condition. But I think if you check your score in a hypercapnic breathing exercise when it's very high, you're not more performant and you're not more intelligent. And at one point, it's difficult for you. But if it's slow and moderate, it can be good for your body because it stays in a range that makes things optimal. So it's about being in an optimal range, in a sub-optimal or super optimal, or too much. And I think when you do a breathing exercise to train, you need to understand that it's a training exercise to get to the optimal range in normal daily life. And when you are in a room, then it can be long. So I think it's also a matter of time. Then at the same time, wouldn't be linked to the fact that if in the room you start to have an oxygen atmosphere, an atmosphere that is not correct, it is not just a matter of CO2, but it's maybe a matter of other components of the atmosphere that are not correct. Maybe oxygen, maybe pollutant. So maybe it's not just the CO2, but I think the time frame of CO2 exposure is important to be considered. And also the intensity. Because if you have a time frame with a low intensity, it's not the same time if you have that time. It's not the same thing if you have the same time frame with a high intensity. So you don't work in the same with high intensity and time. You sort of need to compensate. No, for example, if you do a breathing exercise that is a long breath hold, you're gonna go in very high level of CO2 at the end, but it's for you're gonna do that for a short time. But you can do a hypercapnic exercise for 30 minutes with a low level of CO2. But if you do high level for high time, that's absolutely not the same thing. And also the body doesn't respond at all to peak level and higher average level. Those are also two ways of training with CO2 that are important. Withstanding peak and withstanding higher mean values. And so Patrick McKeown, for example, with the Oxygen Advantage, always talks to raising your mean average tolerance of CO2, but never talk about peak. But sometimes what do breath hold free divers, for example, they work with their peak. The how it is called, the limits that you have in oxygen and CO2 now. I don't have the name in English. It's some threshold anyway. That you can see. So you need to consider the two. You need to consider the average from your chemoreceptor, and then you need to consider the threshold breaking limit.
Yes. So when we take an inhale, we bring in the air into our system, and then the oxygen molecules get onto the red blood cells and they go around, and the CO2 jump out back into the lungs and we breathe out. I wonder if you would know the answer to this. When we breathe in the CO2, does the body absorb that in the lungs as well? How and do you know any mechanism there? Because is that also jumping onto the red blood cells? Like, don't worry if you don't know. I'm just curious.
No, I don't think that we absorb from the alveoli the CO2 from the air into the bloodstream. I don't think that it occurs, because it's quite the opposite. But anyway, in the atmosphere, the level of CO2 are really low. Now, I'm not sure about the percent, but it's less than 1% in the air, maybe 0.5, 0.4, if I remember correctly. So it's usually so low that what we breathe is actually oxygen and how do you say in English?
Nitrogen.
Nitrogen.
Mhm.
Thank you. So I think if the CO2 is higher in the room, is that it just means that it's less of other good stuff, or maybe more pollutant. But it's not
Interesting.
that we're gonna get this CO2 into the blood from that. But it's gonna be something that is in your lungs, and from the, how do you call it, the Dalton law of gases, or how the gases diffuses from high pressure to lower pressure is gonna put a limit on how you can get rid of the excess CO2.
Yes.
So there's also that to
Interesting.
consider.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Can we talk a bit about the 5-dimensional breathing then? So give us a flavour. What are those 5 dimensions, and how did you come up with this?
So, but it was my path really, and all the training that I did. I saw that there are some ways of approaching breath that were sometimes seemingly very different, but in reality very complementary. And one that is really important is the 3 material dimension. It's not that they are less important or more important, they concern the physical body. And I think that is quite of one of the first things we need to consider when we talk about breathing, is like, do you actually know how to breathe correctly, and is everything fine? That's the main thing. Not more important, not less important, but you sort of have these basic things first. And biomechanics, so which muscles, how are the elasticity of your rib cage, your diaphragm, your lungs, things are very normal, like your body, how's your body around your lungs and your breathing muscles. Then the biochemistry we were talking just before, is that your body able to carry the oxygen molecule with the cascade of oxygen, waterfall of oxygen in your body to the cell and the mitochondria, and then back to CO2. Is all of that in a way okay? Is the chemoreceptor well setted? What are the thresholds? And then you have everything that is concerned the physio psychological dimension, the last one of the 3, that is really related to the autonomic nervous system, the vagus nerve, the respiratory sinus arrhythmia. I don't know how I say that in English, sorry. And the heart rhythm, cardiac coherence, baroreceptor, and all of that, and what is the rhythm, what is the depth, how is the body responding to the way you're breathing, and vice versa. So those 3 are really basic things. You can do a lot of them. That's in my opinion, is really is the floor, it's the foundation. And then the other 2 dimension is the energetic side of the breath and the spiritual side of the breath. The energetic is how you take energy from the breathing, and it's not just a matter of a molecule oxygen, but it is connected to the fact that molecule somehow brings also energy into it in the traditions that is called very different ways. And we all heard about chi, prana, and pneuma and spiritus, and it's all related to something that it is a dimension of energy and life force, and that brings to the last dimension, that is the spiritual way of approaching breath. And how do you use that as a path to evolve as an individual? And that can be, linked to the other 4 dimensions, of course, feeling better in my body, having more energy, more health, dealing maybe with trauma. And then, of course, also seeing how the consciousness of how I breathe and how the breathing brings me more conscious about who I am. Then it becomes a path to whatever is the aim you have in your life, can be connected to the world, connected to others, connect to yourself. In yoga, that was really connect to the universe. For maybe spiritual tradition like Buddhism was something else, or martial art was connected to the practice or the master. But there is something about breathing that is not just in the realm of material, of matter. It's also in the realm of energy, and in the kingdom of something that is invisible. So you don't use that just for the sake of something in your body or in the daily life, but it's more about a path, a trajectory. So that's the last dimension, the spiritual one. And I think those 5 needs to be considered to work with the breath, but maybe you're going to start with one or two of them and have a path with those because you need it, and then go to other. But it can be really the opposite for someone else that goes into the breathwork world through the other two or other three. So there is not one entrance, in my opinion, that is possible. And that's why today people get interested to breathing from very different sides. And that's great. But in my opinion, before you want to work with the spiritual and the energetic breath dimensions, you should be quite okay, not a specialist, but quite okay with those first three to be sure that you know what you're doing. Because otherwise, and that has been shown, has been seen, has been proven, if you want, that if you don't know how to breathe in daily life and you do crazy techniques, then you can even go more unbalanced afterwards. And that can be dangerous. So my opinion, you need to strive for a balance first on what is simple, the foundations, to work with something else before. But if that doesn't happen, it's not like tragedy, but just to let people that listen to us know, in case you come from the energetic or spiritual side, then you should get interested also to the other three to make things last in the long run.
Yeah,
that's my view.
I love that. Yeah, thank you. I've noticed some people that do Wim Hof breathing, for example, have very good CO2 tolerance, steps test or Bolt, but they don't do any functional breathing. And what are your thoughts on something like Wim Hof and chemoreceptors? Because I know you're doing these long breath holds, but with low CO2, right? But it's somehow something, I've seen this many, many times. Some people, they have fantastic breath hold scores without hyperventilation as well. Any thoughts what's going on there?
It can be many things, huh, Mike? Maybe, there is something about how they do the breath holds, because when you do the breath holds, we say usually in Wim Hof is hypocapnic. It means low CO2, also at the end of the breath hold. But it is not impossible that if you push those breath holds, you can also work with CO2 tolerance, I think. So that could be one explanation. Another explanation is that when they do the test, they do it from an hyperventilated state. So the results are good. So if you're hyperventilating and you do maximum breath hold, then of course it will be longer because you were hyperventilating. And also, I think it's a matter of how long they've been doing it. Because there is a healing capacity on your lung capacity, on how you use all of these, also of hypocapnic techniques that can help to feel more your breath and, have a better control pulse score and so can be more in touch with your breath, remove tension, remove toxins. We need to consider also that if the body is full of toxins and tension, of course, all those scores go down. But if you go into the detoxifying effect of breathing and lungs from hyperventilation techniques, you can starting to clear your body from the inside out. And that's what happened to me, for example. I didn't do any diet. I didn't do any fasting. I didn't change my movement practices. I didn't change my sleep. I didn't change anything. But when I started doing breathing exercises, was the hyperventilating Wim Hof. I started with that. And the cold shower. I got a synergetic detoxifying effect from cold and breath. You really expel toxins from the lungs. That is, part of the detoxifying organs. And the cold was helping that. And so you can remove things and then you feel better. Then your scores goes up because it's also related to your health. So there are quite a lot of things can happen, and it's not so straightforward. But generally is the opposite. If you just do an hyperventilating technique, usually your CO2 tolerance goes down. Usually that's what happens. Then again, it's not like a tragedy or the end of the world, as long as you have that under control and conscious about it. And really, I think it's not a big issue, and you can recover quite easily and putting into practices like I do to compensate that, in a matter of days or weeks, go everything on a very good side. But if you ignore that, it can be very, very taxing for your health, for the oxidative stress, for your for your longevity, cell longevity. And I've seen that on some of our Wim Hof colleagues getting that not under control because they were not aware of that for too long. Then that doesn't mean that you cannot come back, but I think it would be a pity not to know that from the beginning. So when I teach people all those techniques in my training, I always give them the tool from day one to get this balance from day one and not 2 years after. You know?
I love that. What would you say the biggest difference is doing a Wim Hof style breathing, nose versus mouth, other than a CO2 dumping level difference, more through the mouth than the nose, let's say? What are the other differences, and are there different benefits to both, or is the mouth just the strongest version, and you won't get the same benefits that you will? So just give us a flavor, nose versus mouth Wim Hof.
So this is a very good question, but it's also a very complicated one because there are many things that change when you breathe through the nose to the mouth. It's not just about the biomechanical, biochemical, and psychophysiological dimension, but it's also about the symbolic way of breathing that is not the same when you inhale to the mouth, you exhale through the mouth. It's not the same thing you are doing, and it's not just because the conditioning of the air, the moisture, the temperature, and it's not just about that. So I know that personally I do also with the mouth sometimes to get this more detoxifying effect, because my minute ventilation capability with the mouth are still higher than with the nose. Then depends again. It's not for everyone the same. So I like to do that for a detoxifying effect, because if you want to get something out of you, you can get those toxins out faster with the mouth. So it can be interesting if you want to do a detoxifying version of it in that way. If you want maybe to release also something that is on the emotional, on the tension side, it's true that exhaling with the mouth is something that is more liberating than with the nose. But on a daily practices, I really prefer to do with the nose. And it's not the same on the nervous system, because the mouth is usually activating more than the nose. So it's not just about the quantity of air. It is also about the quality of the response of the system behind that we have. So the nervous system, autonomic nervous system. And so I would say that on a daily basis, I would suggest everyone to use the nose breathing also on the Wim Hof, but they should learn how to use the full yogic breath before. So that's what I teach people before they do the Wim Hof. And then they can do that with the nose with great effect. But on some occasions, when you want to enhance the practice, when you want more a detoxifying effect, when you maybe want to switch off the mind more, or maybe want to go a little bit stronger on something, then why not trying to use the mouth? And also, please consider that you can use nose and mouth at the same time also. It's not just a matter of now is nose, now is mouth, today is nose, today is mouth. You can do a little bit of nose, a little bit of mouth, and that's what I usually make do on the more advanced techniques to my students, that we use combination. In some moment is the mouth, in some moment is the nose. For some technique, for some cycle is the nose, or cycle is the mouth. And you can really play with all of that. Not just the rhythm, not just the quantity, but also the way, the gates in, the gates out.
Love it. Okay. We're going to ask you to do some breathing for us in a second, Leo. But before we do, is there anything we haven't covered yet you wanted to discuss?
I mean, we discovered a lot of things, but we could talk about many more things. Maybe one thing to mention is that with those 5 dimensions of breath, I chartered a way of trying to understand the puzzle of breathing, like trying to find a little bit the codes that are in the breathing world, and I call them the variables of the breath, 7 + 1. That's, we don't have time to discover all of that today, maybe another time. And then the principles that we have. So when we understand which variables we can work on and what are the principles that respond, then you can play with the breath, even going beyond the breathing techniques that exist and creating your own things. And that's what I did, and that's what I can, guide you now to try with the katana breathing technique. That is a breathing technique that I created.
Cool. Well, we're going to link to all of your things in this video so people watching and listening can go and find more. And I would love to do a part 2 with you where we could dig a bit deeper on some of this. I do have one more question that just came up because I just saw your finger in your ring. So I've got an Aura ring. What breathing exercises or not breathing exercises, what else could we do to improve HRV that you've seen on the Aura ring? Because we use coherence breathing, but what else could we do?
There are many breathing techniques that I tried for the HRV, and I think what I discovered that was the most interesting is that depending on the quality of the practice that you have, on the quality of the mind that you have when you breathe, it can make a huge difference on your HRV, regardless of the technique you use. And sometimes I was doing cardiac coherence, that is the exercise that should really bring up your HRV, and I was stressing up actually. I was doing 5-5, I was counting, I was there, I was on, but my mind was tense, the quality of my breath was not there, the HRV was not going up, I can assure. And I was letting go of a little bit of tension, making it more fluid, getting more into the quality of the breath and the quality of the presence, and the HRV was skyrocketing. So yes, the technique, of course, can help to get your HRV up, but really the quality of what you're doing is key. And that's about the breathing technique, but not the breathing. With the cold is the same, because I did the cold showers and I saw the HRV going up. I did ice bath and I see the HRV goes down. So you can really see how you're using this, and movement, fasting, sleeping, laughing, stress, eating. I think everything really can impact your HRV. But if there is one message that I think is important for me to understand, is the quality of what you do and the quality of your presence while you do it, that can really impact the results on HRV.
Beautiful. That's a lovely way to end it. So thank you. And yeah, let's get a part 2 booked in. So you're going to guide us through something now. So do you want to introduce it and then take us away?
Yeah, so we can do Katana 1. There is also a Katana 2 that is a little bit longer and more difficult. But Katana 1 is an exercise that I created to have a complete exercise to train. And the main point was to have a breathing cycle that I could do after my Wim Hof breathing cycle to balance and have a complete exercise, not to be into the unbalanced state. So that's why I created the Katana. So I think it would be really interesting for all people practicing Wim Hof breathing to end their practice. And it's something that lasts a few minutes, so it's not too long. And the point is to get balanced in the nervous system and get balanced into the biochemistry side. At the same time, increasing the breathing efficiency. And at the same time, increasing the breathing consciousness and the mastery that you have in your breathing. So it is challenging as an exercise. Now, I'm going to guide you on something medium. Maybe you will find it easy, maybe you find it difficult, I don't know. But this is an exercise that is adaptogen, in a way that it is a pattern, but the timing change for each individual. So there are principles, there are variables, but there's no fixed timing. Now I'm gonna guide you, and to guide you I need a fixed time. So what we're gonna do is a guided, fixed version of it, but it is not the real technique. But we're gonna do some yogic full breath. If you don't know how to do it, just please try to breathe deeply and fully. We're gonna breathe only with the nose, and we're gonna do what I call a gigantic breath, but I will guide you. Then we will do a long breath hold, exhale, slow inhale, long breath hold, full lungs, long exhale, and 3 slow breath, some breath consciousness. It's going to last about 5 minutes. And I'm going to do it in a way that is quite easy to follow. So you can do it without feeling too much stressed out. Because one of the principles of this breathing technique is that if it's too much as a burden, it's too much of a challenge, you put a cheat in, and a cheat in means breathe in, breathe out, and keep going what you were doing. So if you were exhaling, but you cannot go anymore, inhale, exhale, and keep exhaling. If we're holding, inhale, exhale, keep holding. And this is a way of, trying to go further on the technique, but with no stress. Okay, so anytime everyone can stop, breathe, and continue after. So that's really important also. So please sit down or lay down to do this exercise. No driving, because I know that I listen to podcasts driving, but you cannot do that driving, really. It would be dangerous. So sit down or lay down and relax your body with some, shoulder movement, with maybe some head movement, maybe stretch. You can even yawn. Release, shake it off. Make sure your wrist, your hands, your fingers are relaxed. Your forehead, your eyes, your face, your ears, your jaw are relaxed. Close your mouth. Put the tongue on the roof of the palate. Don't hold tight on your teeth. Release the chest, the back, the hips. Release maybe the knees and the ankles. So your body is like open, fluid. I'm gonna start with 6 full breaths with the nose. So now exhale and start. Inhale fully. If you know, from the diaphragm then to the chest, then you exhale. And you do that with the nose. Yes. Inhale, down. First is the diaphragm, then is the costal muscle, up to the chest, and then exhale. And you can go for it. Make it full, make it deep. Inhale, full yogic breath if you know how to do it. Going up. And then exhale and release the tension when you exhale. Inhale, belly. Up to the chest, up to the shoulders, and exhale. No tension in your body. Release it. 2 more. Inhale, the diaphragm goes down. The chest open up. And then exhale. And now the last one. Inhale fully. And then hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale fully. And then hold. So after exhaling, on a natural way, we start a breath hold. I'm going to do just 30 seconds. Okay? So release, relax. All the tension in your body now, you can let it loose. Your forehead, your eyes, your jaw, the tongue. You can feel a wave of relaxation in the spine, from the head down to the legs. And in 2, 1, we're going to inhale in 10 seconds. So slowly inhaling for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and hold for 20 seconds. I'm going to hold for 20 seconds. The objective is to have more CO2, a little bit of breathlessness. So it's okay to fight it a little bit. Stay there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly exhale on 10 seconds. Exhale in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now inhale in 15 seconds. Start with the diaphragm going down. It's maybe challenging now because you have breathlessness. You are inhaling for 3, for 2, 1. Exhale on 15 seconds. Exhale. Slowly exhaling for 15 seconds. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 15 seconds. So the diaphragm goes down, very down, slowly. Then the chest slightly open up on the side, the ribs open up, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale on 15 seconds. And then the diaphragm starts going up first. Then the ribs start activating to squeeze. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, inhale for 15 seconds. The diaphragm goes down, slowly feeling the lower lungs. Then the chest open up on the side, feeling the medium lungs and then the upper lungs. And 3, 2, 1. And exhale. And first is the diaphragm going up slowly. Then is the chest closing up on the side. And 5, 4, 3, 1. And now inhale and exhale. And now we take 1 minute when we observe the breathing and we let the breath go whatever he wants to do in this moment. No controlling of the breath, totally free, totally autonomic. We're gonna just observe the air going in through the nose, the air going out through the nose without interfering, without changing it. Fully conscious, fully present in the observation of the act of breathing that is unwavering on itself. So no need to change it, no need to move it, just deeply conscious about the breath going in, breath going out. And we feel also how it is pleasant to breathe as much as we want after we try to control it, to master it. How pleasant it is to just breathe. Maybe getting conscious of that pleasure to breathe for the first time today. Ten seconds more. And then slowly ending up the exercise, we come back to our breathing. So opening up the eyes, they were closed slowly, and then stretch to get again back in this room. Some shoulder movement, some neck movement. Checking in with the body. How do I feel after these 5 minutes of katana breathing? We did just 5 minutes. How do I feel? Something changed or not? And then, end of the exercise. How do you feel, Mike?
I feel really relaxed and a bit sleepy. So
Good.
that was very nice, Leo. So thank you so much for guiding us through that.
Yeah,
so people watching, all Leo's links are down below so that you can connect with him and learn more. Leo, any final words for us to close us off?
Thank you for this exchange with you, Mike. Thanks for having this conversation about the breath. And I would really encourage everyone not only to get interested into the breath, but also to start practicing, really.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Till next time. Leo, thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care.
Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for sticking all the way through to the end of the podcast. I mean this so much. It means the world to me that you would watch this podcast, engage with it, and stick all the way through. So genuine thank you. You're the reason that we do these interviews. I love speaking to all these people and sharing this amazing info. And I hope you got something from it. If something did stand out for you, then please put a comment on the YouTube video because it'll help embed it for you, but it'll also give somebody else something that they can take away as well. And just while you're here, just a reminder that if you're exhausted, you've got any form of burnout, or you feel like you might be heading towards burnout, you've got some stress and anxiety, our 7-day burnout reset program is free for a limited time. And the only caveat I have, the only thing I'd say is, if you're going to do it, just do it. Don't delay, don't get it and then think I'll do it next month. Just do it. It's only 7 minutes a day, and I promise you'll feel different after 7 days. Each day I'm going to give you a different exercise to do. It's only a couple of minutes. At the end of the week, you will have felt all these different exercises that I've picked. I've chosen these amazing exercises, and you'll feel more relaxed, you'll feel calm, you'll hopefully sleep a little better, and you'll learn a few extra things about the breath as well. So the link's down below. We're normally charging nearly $100 for this. We're giving it away, just giving it away for free. So grab it while it is free. And I cannot wait to hear how you get on. If you're looking for something to do after this podcast, I would say get the course. I was going to give you a video to watch or something like that. Don't do that. Get the course, and I look forward to reading your comments below. All right. Have a beautiful day, and just know that whatever state you're in right now, whatever led you to this podcast or this channel, know that there is hope out there, and that millions of people have shifted their lives, their mental health and their physical health. And you too can do the same thing. And I believe in you and I trust you. All right. Take care. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.